Thank you for participating in this online training by the State Procurement Office. This training will assist purchasing staff understand the criteria and requirements for emergency and sole source procurement. The training will be in two parts. We will begin with emergency procurements, followed by sole source procurement. There's a lot of ground to cover, so let us begin. The governing authority for emergency procurements can be found in the Hawaii Revised Statutes, Sections 103D, 307, and in the Hawaii Administrative Rules, Chapter 3-122, Subchapter 10. Emergencies is just one of 6 methods of procurement, along with competitive sealed bids, or IFBs, competitive sealed proposals, or RFPs, sole source, professional services, and small purchase. Emergency procurement method is used when there is a threat to life, public health, welfare, or safety. The need must be immediate and serious. While there is no dollar threshold, it does require Chief Procurement Officer or CPO approval. An emergency is a good, service, or construction essential to meet an emergency when all 3 conditions exist. There must be a situation of an unusual or compelling urgency which creates a threat to life, public health, welfare, or safety by reason of major natural disaster, epidemic, riot, fire, or such other reasons as may be determined by the head of the purchasing agency. The emergency condition generates an immediate and serious need for the good, services, or construction that cannot be met through normal procurement methods, and the government would be seriously injured if the purchasing agency is not permitted to employ the means it proposes to use to obtain the goods, services, or construction. And third, without the needed goods, services, or construction, the continuing function of the government, the preservation or protection of irreplaceable property, or the health and safety of any person will be seriously threatened. The criteria should answer 3 questions. What happened? What were the results? And what are the consequences if the situation is not addressed immediately? Periodically, an agency will use emergency procurements inappropriately. Situations that are not emergency procurements include an agency uses these goods or services on a regular basis but fail to solicit and execute a contract in a timely manner, or potential loss of funds at the end of the fiscal year. Emergency procurements must meet additional requirements. 1. The situation must be unforeseen or unanticipated and meet the conditions in HRS 103D 307, and they must obtain approval by the CPO for all dollar levels. CPO approval of an emergency procurement may be obtained prior to or after the fact, depending on the circumstances. Third requirement, emergency procurements may be utilized only to purchase the immediate needs created by the emergency and not subsequent non-emergency requirements. For example, if repairs are needed for a 5-foot section of the road, the procurement cannot be done to repair the entire road. If the entire road is to be fixed, personnel must use the applicable procurement method. 4. When using emergency methods of procurement, it is not necessary to obtain quotes. However, if time permits, it is encouraged to obtain as many quotes as applicable. Some examples of emergency procurements include the failure of runway lighting at Honolulu Airport. Runway lighting for the airport failed due to an electrical short. Two 5,000-volt circuit breakers tripped open and could not be reset to the closed position. These circuit breakers provide primary power to the runway lighting system. An emergency generator was used to provide emergency power to keep the runway lights operation until primary power could be restored. Airport electricians were unable to determine the cause of the outage unable to restore primary power. Is this an emergency procurement? Yes, the department is responsible to maintain safe runway positions. Without runway lights, aircraft cannot safely land or take off, which creates a safety hazard. The scope of work would be limited to address the immediate needs of the situation. When SBO receives the form SBO2, the staff responsible for reviewing will first check who conducted or participated in the procurement and are those named on the form have written delegation and training. They will also ask, what was unusual or compelling urgent situation? Was it unanticipated or unforeseen? Was there an immediate need to fix? What was fixed? Or is this prior to and or after the fact procurement? Why was the vendor selected? Another example, an agency requested after the fact approval to replace termite damaged civil defense poles to save operations on the Leeward Coast. Is this an appropriate emergency procurement? No, would not be considered an emergency procurement. The poles have been poorly maintained for years. However, SBO approved this request based on the DoD's responsibility to provide emergency alert system. The Chief Procurement Officer comments state the deterioration of poles due to termite damage occurs over a period of time and repair or replacement should be procured in an anticipated timely manner utilizing normal procurement methods. Emergency procurements are used to address unanticipated serious situations that require immediate action by a governmental agency that may affect the health and safety of the general public. However, with the passing of time, the situation has elevated to this urgent situation, and any further delay could result in potential danger to the general public. Your agency should consider maintenance prevention programs in place to alert for possible damage to avoid similar emergency situations. Future requests will be considered violations due to DoD's failure to take appropriate precautionary measures in a timely manner. A third example involves continued collection and disposal services for contaminated materials that would affect public health and safety if not properly disposed of. This was for an interim period pending execution of a new contract. The request was received July 19th for services beginning July 1st, 2013 to September 30th, 2013, when a new contract could be executed. Is this an emergency procurement? This would not be an emergency procurement. This was previously done on a contract and would not meet the requirement of being unanticipated. Continued services should be requested as a procurement violation because the contract expired on June 30th, 2013. In addition, the request was received July 19th after the fact. Violation could have been avoided if the agency requested a contract extension or a procurement was done on a timely basis. Emergency procurement has specific procedures. The head of the purchasing agency first determines in writing, using the SBO Form 2, that the required goods, services, or constructions meet the requirements in HRS 103D 307. If time permits, the form is submitted prior to purchase, otherwise as soon as practicable thereafter. SBO Form 2 is submitted for all dollar amounts, and the information shall include the nature of the emergency, the name of the contractor, the amount of the expenditure, the listing of the goods, service, or construction, and reason for the contractor selection. Personnel should attach any information that would explain the need for the continuing function of the government, preservation or protection of irreplaceable property, or the health and safety of the general public. If time permits, Competition shall be obtained as practicable to ensure that the goods, service, or construction is procured in time to meet the emergency. As soon as practicable, a confirming purchase order or P-card must be prepared. The payment document shall include in detail any agreements, including price, made orally with the contractor. HCE or Hawaii Compliance Express documentation is not required at the time services are rendered. However, SBO may check when the Form SBO2 is submitted. This next slide shows an example of a submitted SBO Form 2. It includes 1. The date of the emergency or the period of emergency. 2. Prior or after the fact. 3. Nature of emergency, and be as specific and include references to the governor's proclamation if applicable. Additional information shall include 4. The vendor or contractor's name. 5. The amount of the request. 6. Detailed description of the emergency goods, services, and construction and why it is necessary. And 7. Why the contractor was selected. Why other vendors or contractors could not or was not invited to quote on the good, service, or construction. In Section 8, it is crucial to identify the personnel involved in the procurement. Personnel SBO must be able to contact the appropriate person if there are any questions. SBO will also check to ensure that the staff identified in Section 8 have procurement delegation and have taken the mandatory training. Once the request has been reviewed and all the facts revealed, a final determination will be made and signed by the CPO. It is very important to read the CPO comments as they may affect future action and procurement. In this example, copies of HCE compliance and award posting are required to be kept in the procurement file. Additionally, the HCE certificate must be attached to the invoice when processing payments. All emergency procurement requests, 2,500 or greater, are posted on the SBO website after it has been signed by the CPO. The agency must also post the award on the award site. Emergency procurements are posted because the general public has a right to know how taxpayer dollars have been spent. The posting includes the award date, contract or PO number, a brief description, original purchase order amount or P-card amount, the vendor name, and the department. This flow chart shows the workflow of an emergency procurement, starting with the emergency situation. After the department head determines an emergency situation exists and there is an immediate need for a good, service, or construction, the agency solicits quotes if time permits and submits the SBO Form 2 to the CPO. The request will be reviewed and the CPO will take action. If approved, the agency would procure from the most advantageous source and post the award on the procurement and awards notices site. If there is no time for competition, the agency procures from the best available source, then submits the SBO Form 2 as an after-the-fact request. In this situation, as in the first, the CPO will take action and the agency is responsible to post the award on the procurement and awards notices site. If an after-the-fact emergency procurement request is disapproved, the department may be required to submit the SBO Form 16 or a procurement violation. The second half of this training will be dedicated to sole source procurement. Sole source procurements are governed by Hawaii Revised Statutes, Section 103D, 306, and Hawaii Administrative Rules, Chapter 3-122, Subchapter 9. Sole source procurement is used when there is only one source for the required good, services, or construction, provided CPO approval is obtained. There is no dollar threshold, but will be as stated on the request. The criteria for sole source procurements is that it must be a good service or construction that has a unique feature, characteristic, or capability that is essential for an agency to accomplish its work, and there is only one source or supplier available. Or a situation where an agency obtains CPO approval for a limited quantity of a good or service for test or evaluation purposes by a cleaning solution or specialty paints. The Procurement Policy Board has approved 7 sole source procurements pursuant to Section 3-12281 of the Hawaii Administrative Rules. Number 1 is the rental of booth space for exhibits at conventions and trade shows when organized by a single sponsor, but the rental must be available only through one source. Two, for the repair, replacement, installation, or relocation of public utility company equipment or facilities, when equipment or facilities owned or controlled by the utility company. Third, pre-approved is the annual license renewal and maintenance for computer software, when license renewal maintenance can only be obtained from the manufacturer of the software. 4, procurement of computer software conversions, modifications, and maintenance for existing programs from the manufacturer of the software, when the conversion, modification, or maintenance can only be obtained from the manufacturer of the software. 5, transcription of court proceedings, when the transcripts are only available from the signed court reporter provided by the judiciary. 6, repair and maintenance services and supplies from the original equipment manufacturer or its designated representative, when the services or supplies can only be obtained from the manufacturer or designee to retain the manufacturer's warranty or guarantee. And finally, 7, procurement of equipment upgrades from the original manufacturer to existing equipment and information technology hardware when upgrades are available only from the manufacturer. If using any of the 7 items, agency cites on the payment document approved for sole source procurement pursuant to HER Section 3-122-81 and the appropriate number, the SPO1 is not required. Goods or services listed in 3-122-81 of the Hawaii Administrative Rules may be procured as necessary and has no dollar limitations. HCE compliance are required for purchases $2,500 or more and are required to be posted on the procurement notices and awards reporting site. The requirements for a sole source procurement is that there is only one source is available for purchase unless expressly exempt from public bidding by law or rule, HER 3-122-81. The justification must establish that the good, service, or construction has a unique feature, characteristic, or capability essential to the agency to accomplish its work and is available from only one supplier. Often this includes proprietary items, compatibility to existing software or hardware, and utility repairs that can only be done by the utility company. Unacceptable justifications for sole source procurements include exact brands, as other brands may qualify as equal. The item is unique but available from more than one supplier, which may be restrictive specs. The previous or current person or organization or company furnishing the services does not render them the only source. And potential loss of funds at the end of the year does not make it a sole source. Contract or purchase order terms shall not exceed 1 year unless approval is granted for a multi-term contract pursuant to Section 3-122-149 of the Hawaii Administrative Rules. Annual renewal of sole source requests should be submitted as a new request, not as an amendment. Sole source procurements may require the procurement officer to negotiate with the sole source provider such items as cost, quality, quantity, terms, and delivery. The agency must obtain a certification of funds for all dollar levels. No contract encumbrance is necessary if a request involves a situation where the compensation cannot be accurately estimated at contract award, or consideration is in kind or forbearance, or will be done as a one-time payment. If an agency is requesting CPO approval using the SPO1 and will not execute a contract, the agency must provide justification in their request to support the method of payment to be used. If a sole source contract is expected to exceed $100,000, cost and/or pricing data is required. Any price adjustment to a contract involving aggregate increases or decreases in costs plus applicable profits exceed $100,000 will also require cost or pricing data. Additionally, a procurement officer may make a written determination that circumstances warrant submission of cost or pricing data. Cost or pricing data is actual data or any other pricing documentation used by a vendor to support the pricing being offered to the agency for a contract. A vendor may be required to provide certification pursuant to Hawaii Administrative Rule 3-122, Subchapter 15, using the SPO Form 13, Certificate of Cost or Pricing Data, which is available on the SPO website, Forms for vendors, contractor, and service providers. The cost or pricing data or completed Form SPO 13 must be kept as part of the file contract documentation, and it is a self-certification. There are exceptions. Exceptions to cost or pricing data include catalog, price, price list, etc., which are regularly maintained and published by the manufacturer and available to the general public. It can also be the established market price in the ordinary course of trade and can be substantiated by an independent source. In this example, an agency requires certain unique features that are available on manufacturer's A equipment. Other manufacturers can offer the unique features, but none has all the features on a single equipment. The agency would have to purchase three pieces of equipment in order to have all the unique features offered on manufacturer's A equipment. Can the agency request manufacturer's A equipment as a sole source procurement? No, although there are unique features involved, there are other options for the agency to get the unique features. Therefore, it does not meet the statutes of 103D 306, as an agency could get the same features on three machines, not a single source. But it may not be practicable to do so based on space limitation, budget, or cost. It may be a reason for an exemption from HRS Chapter 103D. Another example of a sole source is where an agency needs to reconfigure the office space to accommodate more staffing. They initially purchase the modular furniture utilizing an RFP. They would like to purchase new cubicles, desktops, panels, and overhead files to accommodate the increasing staff. Cost is estimated to be $100,000. Is this a sole source situation? Yes, if the modular furniture manufacturer has appointed a sole Hawaii representative to sell and install their furniture. Usually components like the connecting pieces, lighting fixtures, and panels are unique to a particular furniture manufacturer and are not interchangeable with other manufacturers. Cost or pricing data will be required if the purchase exceeds $100,000. A third example of a sole source is where an agency is requesting to partner with a single statewide food chain to support their fruit and vegetable media campaign for a 5-month period. The food chain will share their fruits and vegetable sales data with the agency to track the effectiveness of their campaign. Information will be used to plan other programs to include all interested grocery chains to promote the sale and consumption of fruit and vegetables. Could this be considered a sole source procurement? Yes, on the basis that the request was for a limited period for evaluation purposes that would be used for planning a future program. No compensation was given to the food chain for working with the agency for the pilot program, but compensation is not a criteria for this type of sole source. The final example is where an agency is requesting to purchase polygod burial vaults of various sizes for different casket sizes. Justification was a vendor is the manufacturer of a solicited Polyguard burial vault. Other vendors purchased the items from the designated manufacturer for the purpose of reselling. Purchase from any other vendor other than the manufacturer would be more costly. Is purchasing from the manufacturer a sole source procurement? No, the request stated that the Polyguard burial vaults are also available from other vendors. Therefore, it is not a sole source. This also may be a situation where restricted specs may also be an issue. There are specific procedures for sole source purchases. First, the head of the purchasing agency determines in writing that the required goods, service, or construction meets the criteria in HRS 103D-306 and is not on the pre-approved list. The SPO 001 notice and request for sole source must be submitted to the CPO for all dollar amounts. Upon receipt, the CPO posts the request on the designated website for 7 calendar days before taking any approval action. In this slide, which represents an example of a sole source request, the SPO will review the information, which includes 1. The detailed description of the goods, service, or construction. 2. The name of the vendor or the contractor. 3. The amount of the request. 4. The term of the contract, and it cannot be retroactive. And 5. If there are any prior sole source, and include the number if applicable. In Section 6 of the form, the agency must, in 6A, describe the unique characteristics, features, or capabilities of the goods or services. In B, explain how these unique features and characteristics or capabilities are essential to the department to accomplish its work. In Section 7, the agency must indicate what the department did to determine the vendor is a sole source supplier. And in Section 8, the agency states what other resources were investigated. In Section 9, the department must name the contact person who is knowledgeable about the procurement, has delegation and training. Finally, the form must be signed by the department head or its designee. Upon receipt of the Form SPO Form 1, the request is posted on the SPO website for a minimum of 7 days before approval action can be taken. The SPO staff will review the request and make a recommendation to the CPO. The CPO will make a final determination. Sole source awards of $2,500 or more require HCA compliance. It is important to note and read the CPO comments as certain documentation may be required. This screenshot shows an example of a sole source posting. The site includes sole source number, the date request was received, the status of the request, a brief description, the dollar amount, and vendor. A copy of the request is uploaded for public viewing. Sole source requests are posted because taxpayer funds are being used, and as a government employee, we have a responsibility to our shareholders, which are the taxpayers, to be open and transparent. The general public has a right to easy access and to know how the money is being spent. We are accountable for the funds and must keep an auditable trail while following all the rules and procedures, including statutes and rules, procurement circulars, and departmental procedures. Within the 7 calendar days, objections may be submitted in writing. The CPO will consider these objections when making a determination. After the 7th calendar day from the initial posting on the website, the CPO may approve the request. No action or disapproval action on a request can be done any time after posting on the website and returned to the agency. An amendment to a CPO approval sole source request is required when there is a change in the original scope of work, or there is a 10% or more increase to the original contract price. A Form SPO Form 1B must be submitted prior to the expiration of the approved sole source. The request for amendment has the same posting and approval process as the initial request. In an effort to be transparent, the SPO 1 and 1B are posted on the SPO public website prior to and after CPO action. Documents submitted supporting the sole source, objections, and responses to the request, if any, shall be kept with the respective sole source file and public information after CPO action unless otherwise allowed under Chapter 92F of the HRS. An agency can use the website to see if the SPO received a request and are able to print a copy of the approved or disapproved request upon CPO action. This allows the agency to track a particular request. Sole source awards, $2,500 or more, require HC compliance, and agency must post the award on the procurements and awards posting site. State agencies may use the Attorney General's standard contract forms, AG-002, contract for goods and services, exempt, small purchase, sole source, or emergency. The forms can be found on the SPO website, which is spo.hawaii.gov. Click on Forms, click on Department of the Attorney General's Internal Forms Only. This flow chart shows the progression of a sole source procurement. First, the department head determines the need for goods or services to be purchased, and the vendor is the only source. The agency prepares the SPO Form 1, which is then submitted to the CPO. Upon receipt of the SPO 1, the form will be posted for 7 calendar days. The CPO will make a determination based on the information provided. If approved, the agency checks HC compliance, obtains cost price data or analysis if applicable, then issues a contract and posts on the procurement and awards site. If disapproved, the agency is required to use another source selection method like an IFP, RFP, or a small purchase, whichever is appropriate. Some final reminders. Before conducting any procurement method, you must have delegated procurement authority and complete the mandatory training. Training information is available on the SPO website at Training for State and County Personnel. You can find position levels, workshop descriptions, and training requirements. Agencies must use the most current forms from the SPO website. Do not download a copy as it may be obsolete and returned for resubmission. Forms submitted with personnel listed that do not have delegation or training may be returned with no action or disapproved. Contact information is available on the SPO website at the home page and Contact Us. The procurement specialists that will be reviewing CPO approvals will include myself, Bonnie Kahakoi, Wendy Ebisui, Stanton Mato, Kevin Takesu, and Don Tsuruta Kashiwabara.